Buongiorno, everybody. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble, and I am joined, as ever, by Lewis Crawford, and you're listening to Games Up Podcast. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. Rested.
Good. Good.
Rested on this bank holiday weekend.
I was going to say, happy bank holiday to everybody. I hope you're having a lovely Monday off.
Ah, yes.
Thank God, because we need it. Shame though that we won't be getting shame we won't be getting another one for the royal nuptials happening in a week.
Ah, yeah, of course.
I feel like it's a weird time to do that. Like, I feel like doing it a week after a bank holiday is missing the point.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
those royals have to go
We
back
don't
to
get a
work
free
the next
holiday.
day. All right, let's jump into this, ladies and gentlemen. Story number one of the news is Game Pass is supposedly going to increase in price from $7.99 to most likely around £10, 10 currency general. Other countries in the EU have had a similar increase from 20 to 25%. And Microsoft is citing market conditions as the reasons for the change. I think this change is okay. What do you think, Lewis?
I'm a bit mixed in it. I feel like they need to offer more for that personally, and I think the thing with market change is that actually in market conditions, most services are cheaper than Game Pass, so it seems an interesting move. As in, like, EA Access is cheaper than Game Pass, as is someone else has a service that's similar, PS Now. But it's whether they kind of have like enough to bring up to it. I hope that they do, and I hope that like we continue to see the service improve, because they have been actually doing a lot better recently with adding things to it.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is I'm happy to, if I had an Xbox, to pay that kind of amount if we kind of see more and more quality games from the past and the near past, hopefully, come onto the service.
I think there's some ways they could make it instantly more valuable. I think sticking all the OG Xbox games on there would make it instantly more interesting. I can't imagine I can imagine there are some people picking those games up, but I can't imagine there's a huge amount of people that they'd lose money on it from. So I think that would also help their backwards compatibility stuff. So I think that could help. But I don't think it's far off from where it needs to be, and I think you're right. So I'm kind of okay with the price increase, assuming it carries on that it's the trajectory it's been on recently. Number two, Swery65's troubled Kickstarter, The Good Life, has managed to be funded. It looked like it wasn't going to be for a little while, but in the last 2 days, as we kind of suggested it might, Kickstarters tend to have a sort of last-minute uptake, and in this instance, Swery65 had the uptake needed to get him to the final point of his Kickstarter. He funded the initial thing. I don't think they funded the 800,000 to make the Switch stretch goal.
No. It made, I think, about 600 or 500,000. It only tells me in yen, which isn't too useful.
So yeah, sucks if you're a Switch owner, I guess. But I don't. Yeah, the game got made. If you're a particular fan of it or particular fan of Swery stuff, there's a new Swery game coming out. If you're not, then cool, I guess. It's not like what I mean is like Swery's had some fairly interesting, big name, groundbreaking stuff. The kind of thing that was super weird and super odd and off the wall, and that kind of attracted a lot of attention. This one feels like it's more of his kind of under the radar style games.
Yeah, that's fair.
Number three, Dolphin, an emulator for the GameCube and Wii, can now run on a hacked Nintendo Switch, allowing a feature that a lot of people have been asking for. Ironic, of course, that you have to hack your Nintendo Switch to get Virtual Console basically on it. But yeah, if you have a Switch and feel like hacking it, that's a way that you can play old Nintendo games. This has got to be coming, right? Virtual Console's not far off.
Hopefully, because I think it's something that like immediately would make the Nintendo Switch something I'd want to get.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm interested in the Nintendo Switch, but in terms of what it has currently, there are some great good games on there. But at the same time, I'd probably only get it for Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda. And even then, I'm not massively into either of those. However, if you gave me an opportunity to play all my GameCube games and all the great games that were on the Wii, then like straight away you've made that thing well worth the money. So hopefully Nintendo, come on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Virtual Console, like any backwards compatibility, can really enhance a device. And I'm more into the Switch, I would say, probably than you are. But yeah, I think it would definitely sweeten the deal. Number 4, Stardew Valley's multiplayer beta is now live, allowing you to play with a friend over Steam. The feature's been generally well received by a lot of people that have played it. I've seen some people on my social media timelines playing it. They all seem to be having a good time.
Yeah, I look forward to doing this I'll probably play it when it's properly released. Play it with Crystal. Yeah. And yeah, no, it looks beautiful already, and then you can now play with friends. It's perfect.
Would be really nice to see some crossplay on there.
Yeah, definitely. That's something they should look into.
Number 5, sorry about that. Number 5, Remedy's next game will be shown at E3, although the game is now multi-platform, so where previously there used to be a second-party studio for Xbox, they have now gone to the wide open world of console and potentially further gaming. What do we think? What do we think on this one?
There's many things it could be.
There's many things it could be.
Part of me would like to see it be Quantum Break 2, because that would be a massive FU to Microsoft. But it's like, if they can do that, because that is obviously the game that they brought out the door this time, but it's also the reason why they probably got kicked away from Microsoft. It didn't do particularly well. But I really want it to be Alan Wake 2. Personally, because that's a game that I really enjoyed, and it needs like a proper sequel. They did make another game for it, and it wasn't great. Or Max Payne 4, which is another thing I would love to see, because Max Payne 3 is probably one of the best shooters that's on last gen, and maybe even this gen, if it's PC this gen. I don't even know, but very good game, and I kind of hope that they make another one.
I'd love to see Alan Wake 2. I think it's something that people have been calling for a long, long time. I don't think that Quantum Break is the reason Remedy is no longer with Microsoft. I think they've probably chosen to take that themselves. I don't think Microsoft would be pushing away studios at the minute. Yeah, I also don't think you're going to see Max Payne, because I'm pretty sure Rockstar now owns that IP. They certainly developed and published 3, so it'd be very odd if it went back into the hands of Remedy afterwards.
That's true. That is true.
Although, I can't also see Rockstar making Max Payne 4 anytime soon, so maybe it is the kind of IP they're willing to get rid of.
Yeah, you are right, actually. I forgot about that. I did forget about that. I apologise, but yeah. I forget they made the original.
We'll talk more about Rockstar a little later on, but until then, number 6... Capcom have revealed that they will announce at least 3 new titles at E3. Now, I say at least 3 new, you've got to bear with me here. They're announcing an action-adventure game for the Xbox One. They're announcing a game of some form for the PlayStation brand families of consoles, and they're also announcing a game for Switch. There is potential that one of these games is the same as the other, just sort of designed for a different platform. So there's rumours floating around that, for example, the Xbox game might be Dino Crisis, but that it might be targeted for the Xbox and the Switch with cross-play between. As we don't know exactly what these IPs are or what they may turn out to be, it's hard to nail down where they'll sit or where they'll fall, but there are 3 IPs or 3 announcements coming from Capcom at E3. Whether they're the same or totally different is yet to be seen. Whew, that was messy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've known for a long time. I feel like Capcom's one of the ones I mentioned as having very big gaps in between. Like, we know that they were up to something. They didn't have anything too surprising or big releasing recently, or coming, in the future. So it's good to see that they've got something this time. And they should be interesting, I guess, if we're expecting to hear news from them soon.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be too hard to guess some of the things that could be announced. I'm starting to sort of list together my predictions, and Capcom are in there. But how right we are or not, we'll see in a couple of weeks' time. Number 7, Beyond Good and Evil 2 will have more details announced at E3. This is a very big thing because last year Beyond Good and Evil was a big surprise for Ubisoft, but it also called into question how likely we were to see the game anytime soon. I think this is more reassuring, perhaps not very reassuring, but more reassuring than hearing nothing from it.
Maybe it will finally answer what the game is, because it's quite obvious it's not Beyond Good and Evil sequel, really.
Yeah.
In terms of gameplay and style, it looks very different. Beyond Good and Evil, a game where you kind of go around saving a world, and then this is like, oh, you've got spaceships and space pirates and planets, and like that's its main focus, it seems. So it's very different from how the other game was. But it looks like it could have a lot of potential, but it also looks like something that could also just flop straight out the gate. So I'm in like two minds about Beyond Good and Evil 2.
Yeah, it does look weird because it doesn't look like Beyond Good and Evil, as you say, but it does. I do feel like it fits that series. Like it does feel like a sort of offshoot of Beyond Good and Evil in that I could see it fitting into the same IP. Um, Beyond Good and Evil 2 last year was one of the most exciting moments of E3 for me because I haven't played the original game. I know a bit about it, but I haven't played it particularly. And with so much expectation around that game, to have a trailer that actually caught my mind and excited me, kind of brought me in, perhaps wrongly, to that hype. So yeah, I'm very excited,
That's interesting.
about that game.
I feel like if you watch the developer video that they released after E3, which basically showed that the game was like not even 1% made.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very interested to see how fast Ubisoft can make this work, because after their performance last year, they showed that like basically like they had a engine that allowed them to move a character around and like zoom in and out in space. But in terms of like actual game, there wasn't like anything at all.
I think you might be taking the wrong thing from the developer insight that we got at the end of E3 last year. I don't think the game, I should make clear, I don't think the game is far along at all. But I do think they were trying to sort of show off something more than just...
Yeah, no, in fairness, yeah, like the tech that they showed off, like this game looks like its tech is amazing, which Ubisoft always have amazing tech.
Yeah.
And actually like to the levels where they usually have some of the best animation studios, like, character movement and all that stuff is usually way beyond most developers. They usually have some amazing tech, and this looks like it's going to be something that's got some amazing tech behind it, some like very advanced tools, but I don't know whether that's enough yet. So I'm interested to see what they've got.
Yeah, I'm in agree with you. I think so. The developer thing you're talking about specifically, I'm right in thinking that's the one where they showed a character and then zoomed out to like planet size, and then zoomed out to like multiple planets, and then universe. And I like as a concept, I think that's incredible. I don't obviously that won't be what the game is, but I like the idea of a game that deals with scale, in that size, and I think that's sort of quickly what we're working towards with, the with this generation and the kind of tech that it can deal with. I say that playing on the console that can barely run PUBG, but you know what I mean. Especially from a studio like Ubisoft, they are clearly the kind of studio that can deal with that and deliver it. Yeah, I hope we get something a lot more concrete, even if it says that the game is a while away. I'd rather know it's a while away and what it is than sort of have it as a thought in the background. Number 8, early word on State of Decay 2 is not great. Apparently, the expectations may have been set a little bit too high from what is essentially a sequel to an indie game. Admittedly, a well-received indie game that was picked up at the time that it needed somewhere to go and found a fairly good home on Xbox, I would say. But State of Decay 2 does seem to be struggling a great deal from technical issues and perhaps a slightly blank slate of features compared to what we thought it would be.
Yeah, I think it's, this is a sequel to what essentially was an indie game, a very well-received indie game, but it's not something that's turning around and becoming, Halo kind of quality of game or like something like that. So ultimately, like, there's only so much they could do. I think like it'll be a good game, don't get me wrong. It's just that I think that people are kind of maybe expecting too much, and maybe that will affect how it's received.
I mean, let's be blunt about this. To some extent, that is the fault of Microsoft, because it's not a tentpole game in other years or in other situations, but right now it needs to be. And I think Sea of Thieves is closer to a tentpole game, but not quite. It's not at the time of its launch Halo tentpole or
yeah, I think that you're right. That's the main problem, is that Microsoft had to bring something to the table to kind of see off Sony. And so the way that it did that was kind of pushing these games as if they were something that would like see off, God of War and the other games that Sony were bringing to the table. So
See
they
off
made a big
Thieves.
deal. Yeah, they made a big deal about Sea of Thieves and State of Decay and Crackdown 3. And ultimately, these games, I don't know about Crackdown 3, we'll see about that one, but it's like obvious that they're not the same thing. Or not of that same kind of caliber, if you like. And that's not a problem with the games themselves. It's just that ultimately, I think that's kind of the marketing maybe is a bit.
I think it's kind of difficult because Sea of Thieves is selling really well, and I would say I think it's kind of probably outsmarted us a little bit. We really didn't expect it to be the success it is, and certainly it's not selling 3.1 God of War levels, but it is selling fairly healthily, and its community is fairly healthy, and the word around it is fairly healthy, which we didn't expect. And so I think it kind of must be said that if Xbox supports that, and if Microsoft can sort of keep it on a healthy track, it could have a lifespan that fends off bigger AAA titles like God of War, for example, because God of War is a more finite story mode where Sea of Thieves has the opportunity to be something sort of longer spanning than that. But it is odd to try and market those two games as the same killer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's ultimately the problem is that maybe it's the problem just with Game Pass itself, because that's obviously how it was pushed in a way. That kind of put them all on an equal level in terms of advertising, and it's kind of like State of Decay is not bad, but it's at the same time it's releasing something that's not the same, not as strong, even as Sea of Thieves. You're right.
And again, it could be if the lifespan is there and the support is there and the community and the content is there. It would be nice to see Microsoft launch something that not feels finished, but that feels like a more traditional single-player game. And Spencer said many times, "Yeah, we know," but it would be nice to see them prove that. But games like this could have the lifespan to be God of War, Sony, whatever killers, but they won't be out the gate, and that's important.
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
And number 9 this week, The Wild West came back once again in a trailer for Red Dead 2 that showed off a huge amount of the story and open world elements. We're still yet to see any gameplay from the game, which is now 5 months out, but Rockstar are kind of known for doing that. We had kind of mixed feelings on this trailer. You were not a fan, Lewis. I am totally in.
I don't know. My opinion's changed a bit since we talked about it a little bit.
Okay.
So initially, my problem with it my problem with it is that we've seen kind of. I feel like we want to see gameplay, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big fan of westerns, so I'm hoping the gameplay kind of wins me over a little bit. I feel like there's kind of 3 Western stories, and they're every Western film is one of those 3 stories. And I imagine this is going to be one of those 3 stories. So in terms of that, the story doesn't interest me too much, but I think on the other hand of things, on the other side, it's pretty clear that they've gone quite heavy into story this time, and that is something that I am actually interested in, is when a good story is made. So, in a lot of ways, this was very positive in how they present this trailer out. Yes, there's no gameplay, but they haven't just kind of put cinematics in. They've put something to make it kind of very much feel like they're really trying to push that story element. In the trailer.
I totally get what you mean, and you're not wrong. I just think that we come at this game wanting 2 different things. Yeah. You are right. There, the Western story hasn't really been pushed much, and there's an argument I would say that Red Dead was one of the more innovative Western stories that we've seen since really the Westerns began. But at the end of the day, that is still the outlaw running from the law kind of Western story. So yeah, it still remains to be seen what the game will be and how it all works. The reason I was really into it is because we've been talking a lot recently about cinematic games, especially with God of War and the announcement of the new Tomb Raider and stuff. And the place I struggle with a lot of those games, I'll keep God of War out of this conversation because I haven't played it. But the place I struggle with Uncharted kind of cinematic story games is that I often feel that they rely on removing the opportunity for the player to do something in order to do it as cool as possible. Like there's a lot of moments in Tomb Raiders and so on and so forth where something cool will happen in the distance or in front of you because the camera turns from you to look at it. Whereas I love Rockstar games specifically, and a couple of others, but I love Rockstar specifically because they are able to make a very cinematic story in a world that totally functions with gameplay mechanics. And this seemed like the biggest kind of expansion of that we've seen in Rockstar since GTA, which is obvious, but it's still very exciting to see how far the game seems like it's come.
Yeah, definitely. I think you could probably argue with Uncharted. I think Uncharted's not as bad in that sense as you might think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel that like some early word that we've heard from the press has been very positive about the game, and also it feels like, so they were talking about how interactions with the horse would work,
mm-hmm.
and how like you have to break your own horse, you have to kind of form a relationship with it. Depending on how you treat the horse, like different things might happen, and it'll be able to like store more for you, or you can whistle it from further away.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that it carries your big guns, which makes it sound like you're going to have quite a limited inventory. The weapon wheel maybe will not be in the game.
Yeah.
You won't be able to kind of pull a rocket launcher, I don't know, GTA style, but being able to pull like any weapon from anywhere,
mm-hmm.
which is a feature I really like personally. I really like. I know, as in having like a limited weapon set is something I really like, especially in something like looking at Max Payne we talked about earlier, like a game where you carry two guns and then you can carry a big gun, but you have to hold it in your hand. You don't have anywhere to put it. And I like that kind of concept of like having the weapons exist all the time and then kind of putting it on your horse, taking it from your horse when you need it. But the main thing I think about that's interesting about that is a bit like, say, in Arkham City where Batman's suit gets damaged. It's something that, the story affects the world. Mm-hmm. and affects the people in the world. And it feels like they're going to be trying to go for that in this game with having those interactions with the horse, or having like the behavior of your character change, or your look of your character change throughout the game.
Yeah, I agree. They've spoken a lot about how they want the world to be sort of persistent, how they want it to have this kind of more natural open world feel, like you can step away from bits of the world and they'll still exist. In the most sandboxy way you can possibly have. And I think that's really exciting. So much of that was there in GTA 5. Like, one of the things I absolutely love about Rockstar is they put in so much detail that there is just no need for. Like, GTA 5 has working bus routes. There's no need. There is absolutely no need for a video game to have working bus routes, except there'll be 5 or 6 players, or like 600, 6,000, whatever, that like rely on that bus turning up to make a cool moment happen. And it's the kind of thing that in any other studio it would be, and arguably in Rockstar it's totally unsustainable and a little bit bloated, but it makes those games so special. And I really look forward to seeing what they're doing with like the development of towns, for example, in Red Dead, or the development of systems like the law, or because a lot of the things that we'll see in Red Dead will be the development of those systems in reality, as in like society really that we know today will sort of be building itself, and it will be really interesting to watch Rockstar have to go back in time but forward in mechanics.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about that is that those kind of elements, Rockstar have been getting a lot better at them. In the original Red Dead Redemption and in maybe like GTA Vice City, I guess, around that era, those elements weren't explored to as much, like the having living cities and having workable kind of
systems,
like real world systems, if you like. And I think that, current tech has been improved a lot. You look at, I always like to bring up Witcher in every conversation about games. But, in Witcher it had a very similar system where like things were very alive, cities felt very alive. And I would love to see that in Red Dead Redemption 2, having very like real feeling towns, having farmers and people come to the pub, the bar. I I think that could be really cool if they really kind of make the world feel very alive. Because I think the thing that something like a fantasy genre or like a Wild West genre does that you can't really do as much in, say, a city genre, city world, is that it has this thing where, you know, you could pick a character and maybe that character like is someone who lives there in the town, because you have much smaller towns, so you could have much more in-depth characters just for random NPCs. Part of me hopes that they go down that route.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we've seen a lot of, like, we've seen The Witcher inspire a lot of things, and I would say I'd point you heavily in the direction of Far Cry. I really, really think Far Cry takes a big page out of that book. I think you'll enjoy it a lot for that reason. Yeah, also, as an aside, I got to the end of Far Cry earlier this week. Whoa! That's one hell of a game. So, yeah. I totally understand why you were saying, like, there's a thing that happens probably that turns a lot of people off. Yes, 100%. I totally understand why people would be pissed at that. It excited me more than a game has in probably 7 years. Like, probably since Arkham City.
That's cool.
Oh, God, it was so good. All right. So, this gives us a problem, though. Because Red Dead 2 looks amazing, the open world looks amazing, the story seems like it's absolutely an evolution of what Rockstar can do, but it is coming from Rockstar. Now, that's a great thing in terms of gameplay, but for the last couple of years, it's been not a great thing in terms of monetization. We've seen GTA Online really wring as much blood out of a stone as you possibly can, and the question remains of what will Red Dead 2 look like when it releases as a full game? How will that game function and probably try and extend its lifetime beyond its initial story campaign? Do you think we're going to be getting a Red Dead Online?
I'm certain we'll be getting a Red Dead Online down the line. I think, as you know, some respect has to be given for them. You know, we talked about how they've kind of been trying to show off the story elements, and maybe that's kind of like trying to push aside the multiplayer in some way and be like, yes, we do still care about single player. Single player is still going to matter. And it seems like they're really trying to push that kind of angle. They have mentioned that multiplayers, we're going to hear more about that later, whether that's like after the game releases or just before the game releases is, you know, up in the air. But, you know, GTA Online came out after the game went online, I believe. It wasn't live with the game, so it's possible that we will be hearing about that after the game's already released, which would be a good sign, really. I kind of, you know, I get a bit sad when we talk about Rockstar because they haven't released a game in the last like 5 years, and then before that it was kind of consistently like every year they brought out a great game like LA Noire and Max Payne, and I really miss those days. So I'm hoping that they maybe focus on online a little bit less, but they make a lot of money from it, so it's hard to kind of say. I do worry about monetization though, and sharks and whales and all this terminology that came out as like a mick taker, then it's like they've adopted it for GTA.
Yeah.
And just be like, whales, we want you.
I'm kind of torn because I totally agree about what you said about they used to have a much more frequent cycle, and I think that will come to the detriment of them eventually. I think like Red Dead and GTA are clearly going to be their bread and butter for a little while, and those games are amazing, and they're going to be amazing as many as we get. But I think like what made Red Dead and GTA amazing was that they came out after a Bully or an LA Noire. Like, I think they were made more amazing because Rockstar showed off what they could do if they experimented, and then what they do when they nail it. And like, I think LA Noire, for example, will always be made better by the fact that you know that if LA Noire 2 was made, it'd be damn perfect. Like, you know that when Bully 2 was made, it was better, and if Bully 3 is made, it will be better. And I think there's very few studios who you can look at and go, they can experiment and expand in every time. And Rockstar are special for that. And I think people will kind of dry up a bit on seeing Red Dead, GTA, Red Dead, GTA, Red Dead, GTA. I do hope they have a little bit of room for experimentation there. I think I have a kind of semi-prediction of what we're going to see Red Dead do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it this week, and I'm thinking, like, I don't think Red Dead Online makes a lot of sense. Like, a multiplayer mode makes a lot of sense, and an open world multiplayer like Red Dead 1 had makes a lot of sense, but I don't know that the monetization makes a lot of sense in the same way it did for GTA. Because with GTA, it's like, it's this caricature of a world, and so you can add in stuff like the DeLorean, and it feels stupid, and it feels out of place, but it feels like out of place in the right way. Like, the DeLorean is very clearly a caricature of what's happening rather than something that's supposed to fit in. I don't think that works with Red Dead. Like, I don't think you could have crazy, silly, funny add-ins that you buy with shark cards, or silly, funny game modes, or this, that, the other, or whatever, because it doesn't hit the nail in the same way. What you can do, though, and what they did, is spin off of that. I'm going to say that the multiplayer mode of Red Dead, the version of Red Dead Online, is Undead Nightmare 2.
Okay. That's an interesting theory, yeah.
Like, I think you haven't...
Or something you could go, like, more wacky in without it feeling...
Right, like, you have... Let's say you have, like 6 weeks of Red Dead, and they're like, here, that's Red Dead, you've played the story now, you've got the single-player world, that's not going anywhere. But we know, like, they know people want Undead Nightmare 2. There's an argument to be made that Undead Nightmare was more successful than Red Dead originally. They can't be ignoring that, like, because they've not ignored what people want from games for a while, except the Gilead mystery. I kind of feel like they need a way for that to make more money for them than the initial game, if that makes sense. I think Undead Nightmare makes more sense as a persistent world multiplayer thing.
Okay. Yeah, so I can see Undead Nightmare being where they do it. Because you're right, in a way, like, it just wouldn't maybe feel as correct in the normal mode, as well as the fact that, like, GTA works because you're in a big city with tons of people in, and that's never really the thing with the Western genre. While I think it could be cool, it will start being a bit strange if you just have hundreds of people in, you know, the environment that's probably not really made for that kind of interaction. Especially because, you know, the traditional Western, like, thing is, like, you know, someone rides into town and they have a shootout or something. And that's not really going to work if there's, like, just 100 people there. Or, you know, so many people there. So I could see Undead Nightmare being part of it. I do think that they will have maybe other modes, or, like, maybe a limited version of online. Like what we talked about, you know, like small invite a friend kind of online sessions. Because I think, like, they must be wanting to do some sort of, like, shootout or, you know, Pistols at Dawn mode. But with friends, you know, like the classic in the old game. So, I think that you're right, that they'll have something wacky so that they can push the shark cards. And the money.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It might not necessarily be wacky, but I think they'll have something extra in all the senses of the word.
Yeah, that seems fair.
But I think this trailer was the best one they've put out for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Since I think the reveal trailer in this are, like, equal levels of exciting for this.
Okay, that's cool.
And I guarantee you it'll be on Sony's stage.
But I mean, so it's not their style to be at E3 too heavily. At least they haven't done that in the past with GTA and the rest of them. So I don't know if we'll see too much at E3. Maybe they'll prefer to kind of release the news closer to the release, which is what they normally do. I think GTA 5, like, gameplay was only revealed, like, 2 months before GTA was launched.
Yeah.
So we might see something similar to that. But you're right, it probably will be on Sony stage if it is mentioned.
I mean, it's almost certainly, like, it's just not going to be on Microsoft stage. If it did, that would be probably all their money for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, brings us to the end of this lovely bank holiday special. But the next couple of weeks of Games Up gets super interesting. Next week is just a regular bog standard episode. Then the week following we have our next week's boring. Don't worry about that.
Don't even bother tuning in. Just yeah.
And then the week following that, we're celebrating after 4 years 100 episodes, which will be lovely. And then we're gonna burn through our E3 predictions before everything gets hot and fiery. So it's going to be a good couple of weeks of the show, and hopefully, now that I'm a little bit more in the 21st century with the speed of my internet, we'll be posting more regularly and maybe streaming every now and then. It's going to be good shit.
Yeah, it should be really good.
It'll be
I'm
really
looking forward to those episodes, and I'm looking forward to streaming stuff.
And E3. I feel like
Yeah.
this is going to be a good year.
Yeah, me too.
That being said, what are you going to be playing this week, my friend?
So I'm actually replaying Witcher 3. So I've completed God of War, and now I'm playing Dead Space 2, which is an amazing game, and it makes me so sad that Dead Space 3 kind of ended the series, and yeah. Because Dead Space 2 is like, they are so close to like perfection on that game. And then I'm playing Witcher 3, and something else which escapes me, but I'm going to kick myself for forgetting it.
What did you think of the ending of God of War?
Really enjoyed it. So it has like quite a big fight, and then it kind of ends on a very subdued note, with a reveal, a spoiler. Yeah, I'm really excited for what they do with it next, because it's very much the origin story, or the and it's done really well. Like I think often you can have an origin story where it just kind of is boring, doesn't really encapsulate its own story. It's only like the character's made, whereas this is very much its own story and then builds up on there being something else.
Yeah.
And, I look forward to God of War 7 or 6 or whatever, when we go through and kill every god in the world. Because that's how it was in the original series, like God of War 1 was like meeting Kratos, and then God of War 3 is literally just like tick off the list of all the Greek gods. I look forward to that point when it's Norse gods, but this was fun.
This week I will be playing. I don't know. I finished Far Cry, as I said. I really need to finish Telltale's Batman. I've been saying I'll do it every long time.
I haven't finished it either.
And then I need to get around to doing it. So I'll maybe try and do that this week. Overwatch, obviously, because it's Overwatch. Yeah, and the game of life.
Yeah, that's me next week, actually.
I was going to say,
The game of life.
Game
Game of interviews.
Yeah, I guess that will be about that. So, thank you very much for listening. We always appreciate it. You can find this show every 6:30. No, you can find this show every Monday at 6:30. In the evening, and much earlier that day on iTunes, so you can catch it on your way to work, or not if it's a bank holiday that you're listening to it on. If you feel like liking and subscribing to the show so that we can get out in front of a few more people, and so that we know you catch everything that we make, that'd be great. If not, that's cool. We understand. Have a lovely bank holiday weekend. I'm off to watch the Overwatch League playoffs. And yeah, bye. Oh, the game's up. Sorry, yeah, that's the bit. Game's up. Bye.